So it all started in 1989 for me, this new world that I entered in. 1989 was the year that I graduated from high school and began college. And during that year, a lot of things shifted for me. Two friends of mine and I, we drove to Vermont that winter. It was probably 1990, early January or February. We drove to Vermont to the Killington Mountains. So just for some of you, a mountain is this thing that goes way up high in you Midwest. Okay, I'm just kidding. Yeah, they're very far away from here, but there are mountains, and it looks something like this, or so I'm told. It looks a lot scarier from up top. And so we're on this mountain range, and we're skiing, and I was a huge skier. I love skiing. I still do. And we went up there, and we're at the top, and there's this white out, which just means the blizzard is going really hard, and we were just loving every second. You can only see people that are 5 or 6 feet away, but they're right next to me. And we're coming down off the slope, and we're the only ones up there, or so we think anyway, we assume we are. And we're passing by this slope that goes over the edge, and a big yellow line is across it, right? Caution, do not cross. You know those tape, like those police line tapes? And it's basically telling you this is not a place that you ski down. Okay, now it had a sign of it. The sign was Devil's Fiddle, okay, which already is scary enough, right? But then the line across it just made it scarier. But for me and these three guys, we just kind of looked at each other like, we're only in Vermont once, and we only live once. And so we're skiing by it, we just dropped down onto the back of our skis underneath the yellow line, and we were off. So we're going down this mountain. Now, the reason that they put these yellow lines up there is to keep you off of such mountains because they don't have snow blowers up there. This is Killington, right? There's always snow up there, but on certain slopes, you need a lot more than the regular amount of snow. You only get to go down Devil's Fiddle a couple of times a year because it's basically cliffs and trees. There's not like a slope, a big open slope. It's for the experts of the experts. Now, I'm good, but I'm not an expert of the expert, okay? And there's not enough snow. So we find that out as we're going down and we just slide, and we're on this cliff that's the size of an automobile, and it just slides because there's no snow on it. It's just a rock, and so you can't stop on a rock. And then you just drop, and you're just free fall, and you're looking down. And I'm looking across this other guy who's free falling too. We're just like this look of absolute joy, right? And hit the ground, and we roll and hit a tree, and we get up, and we're going, right? Cuts, bruises, you get down. It takes about 30 or 40 minutes to get down this slope, sweating. It's like 13 below, and we're stripping our coats. We're like, this is so awesome. Go up the gondola, 30-minute drive up to the top, ride up to the top, and we're doing it again. 6 times we did it this day. I had to tape my fingers together. I had bruises. Some of them have still not healed. It was awesome. So awesome. And so from here on, I'm like adrenaline junkie. This is the greatest thing ever. And me and these other 2 guys, we're doing everything together. Okay, this is while I'm in college. We are looking for ways, whatever inspires us, that passion, that zeal. And so I started training because I'm doing these things. I got to get ready. So Ironman competition every morning. I'm, putting on the Walkman, put the tape in there, Def Leppard, right? Put it on, get ready. Yeah. Walk this way, you and me, babe. Hey, hey. You guys don't know that song, I know, because that's not Maranatha music. I did not listen to Maranatha music. But anyway, and I'm running, right? I'm running the 60 miles or whatever it is they're doing, 116 mile on the bikes, 4.1 mile swims, all these things. I didn't win because I'm not the craziest person out there, but it was so awesome. And we look for other thrills, anything that can just thrill us. So people talked about elevator surfing. I'm like, what the heck is elevator surfing? They're like, trust me, this is awesome. So you go into an elevator and you make sure you're at a building that has lots of elevators, at least 3 in a row, and then back to back. So there's like 6 or 4, at least 4, but you can have 6, and they're all in a very compact area. And you go into the elevator and you hit the top like you would normally do, like anything. And then you're waiting. You make sure nobody else is on there, or you and a friend. And then you pop up. You've seen it in the movies, right? You pop up that little thing at the top of the elevator, and you get on top of the elevator. And so you're riding the elevator up on top, which is just going at normal speed, just like anything else. But the reason that you have all of them in the same area is because other ones are going up and down at the same time. And it's elevator surfing. So you're on top and you're surfing and you're jumping from one to the other. It's so awesome. Trust me, this is the coolest thing ever. And you can do it with trains, I found out. So you get on the train and you're just doing normal surfing, right, on top of the train. So the trains that come here, they're only going 20 miles an hour or something, right? Just simple. And so you're surfing on top of them. But the best thing is when a train is coming by the other way, and especially if they're long trains, like here, you're here for like 20 minutes waiting for the train to pass. You can go back and forth from one train to the other. They have to be within 5 feet of each other, and you jump back and forth. You guys have done this, right? Yeah, it's awesome. And so, and we did buildering. You can Google this. I know these are all real things. Buildering, they didn't have a name when I was doing it in 1990. But basically it's climbing up the sides of buildings. And I wasn't like a height freak, so I didn't go up too high. But basically it's finger hold, kind of pulling yourself up buildings, like on these little tiny pieces, and you got your toes in. And it is super, it's like this adrenaline rush when you're up 3 or 4 stories and you're doing this. And of course, the parkour, so if you've got banisters and stuff like that, you'd be able to pull them up. My sons became way better at parkour than I was at that time, but I was trying it, it was new. And craning is you go into construction, you basically break into a construction, you jump the fence, barbed wire and stuff like that, and then you climb the cranes. And you've seen those, like, have you seen those things where they take selfies of themselves up on a crane and they're like hanging from the cranes and they're like 100 feet up? This is what me and these 2 buddies did. We were so into this. Everything, like jumping out of planes and parachutes. One time somebody gave me, this is the coolest thing. This wasn't in that was actually about 8 or 9 years later when they came out with these wingsuit things. Have you ever seen those? They're really expensive, but someone let me do it with them. Oh my gosh, the adrenaline rush of all of that and the jumps out of planes in general. Oh, the coolest things ever. I climbed, this was a little bit later than college years because my wife was with me too, but we climbed Kilimanjaro. It takes 3 days to get up Kilimanjaro, and you have to have oxygen 2 days to get back down. Like, amazing. Like the power, just to look out and see everything that God has done, or to have that juice is just flowing in you. And all this, almost all of that during college with a 3.5 GPA, I might add, okay? And I was taken off every weekend to go do something like, calculus test, whatever, right? And so we were going to do it. It was so incredible. Now, I'm going to tell you all this. I tell you all that, but let me tell you this too. Almost none of that was true. Okay, so some of it was, like I have ridden in elevators up and down before. I saw Kilimanjaro from a plane. I've ridden on a train before. I've been in an air, so some of these things are 100% accurate, but most of them not so much. I never ran 26 miles in my max, maybe 6 is the most I could ever get at the high. I don't know a lot about risk or adrenaline. I'm not that guy. Okay, I'm just, and my guess is you didn't choose Warsaw because it was a super risky place to live. Right? Those of you who chose this place, I mean, it was like, yeah, let's go to Warsaw. What are we going to do on the weekends? I don't know, bowling? What do we have? We got some lakes, so there's a little bit of cool stuff. You can do some flips on that stuff, but most of us are afraid of what's out there, right? We're spectators. We can watch extreme sports all day long, but we're not doing any of these things. At least I'm not doing any of these things. We don't take risks. We're kind of like the elephant in Tarzan. Remember that elephant where he's kind of sticking his toe in the water and he says, "It doesn't look sanitary to me." Remember that? Right? Like we're like, I don't want to do this. This is not. And fear is this horrible dictator. Fear just grabs hold of us. I wonder if we're so busy living our life of ease and safety that we're missing out on real life, on abundant life. We're so afraid of the things around us. Like we're afraid that we might not get the woman or the man that we want. We're afraid we're not going to get as cool a pastor as we've had for the last year. We're afraid, right? We're afraid of these kinds of things. Maybe we're afraid that the last year's been wasted. We're afraid, and this fear just kills us. I wonder what would happen if Warsaw started grabbing life by the horns and holding on for all it's worth. I wonder what would happen if WEPC would look, what it would look like if it risked everything and went all in. All in. I love 1 Samuel 14 is the coolest passage in the world. I love reading this. Look at it with me. Look at it, scroll, turn to it. Right at the very beginning of chapter 14, we've got Jonathan. It says, one day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to the young man bearing his armor, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying at the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men, among whom was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. He was the son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. Now, perhaps you don't know this family. You've heard of Jonathan. You've heard of Saul, right? You know who they are, but perhaps you weren't living 3,000 years ago under a monarchy, and you don't really remember what's happening. Saul is a pretty famous guy at this point. He had proven himself in battle. And now we find that he's got 600 warriors. The Philistines are enraged. They're in a battle. They're in a war. But where is Saul? Sitting in Migron under a pomegranate tree. I didn't even know pomegranates. I don't even know what a pomegranate, right? But he's sitting under a pomegranate tree with his 600 warriors. Now that might not be a bad thing. Like sometimes we need a rest. We need a time out. But the way this author is telling you this is that Jonathan is on his way to do battle. Saul, the super warrior, is sitting under a pomegranate tree. Right? He's trying to give you this diversity here. They're not the same kind of person here. So he's heading over there, and no one had known that Jonathan was left. Now, this is a political treatise about Jonathan and against the Saulide dynasty. Okay, we know this because Samuel Kings is telling you the story before the monarchy, and Chronicles is telling you it after the exile. And they're trying to do different things. They're trying to tell who is the better king. And whoever is writing this particular story is in favor of David. Now, that doesn't fit totally because all we got is Jonathan and the armor bearer right now. But if you know what's coming, chapter 15, Saul is going to lose the kingdom. Chapter 16, we're going to be introduced to this new kid on the block. And in chapter 17, this new kid is going to come visit his friends, and there's a giant that's going to come out, and he's going to take a sling, and he's going to decapitate this guy. All right, so this is the intro story to David. Jonathan, who is Saul's son, isn't on Saul's side. Jonathan is on David's side. That's what's coming with the whole story. We're not there yet, but this is all about these particular kings, about who would be king. But let's keep going. The exploits are awesome. On each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez and the other Sene. Okay, so we've got these two different cliffs. I don't know why they named the cliffs, but they had names for the cliffs. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash and the other south toward Geba. Jonathan said to his young armor bearer, "Come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised fellows." Hear the taunt, the hostility, the animosity in his voice. Those uncircumcised fellows. Let's go over there. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. That is, they're people, it doesn't matter whether it's circumcised or uncircumcised, but they're people who do not follow Yahweh. It's those people. They're the bad guys. Okay? In our story, they're the bad guys. And he says, let's go over to the outpost. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. That's the title of this sermon. Perhaps the Lord will act. It continues. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Doesn't matter how many there are. There's only two of us. Me, armor bearer, let's go. Do all that you have in mind, his armor bearer said. Go ahead. I am with you, heart and soul. I want to take that apart. I want us to look at perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf, that nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. And about this armor bearer who says, I'm with you, heart and soul. Jonathan said, come then, we'll cross over towards the men, and let them see us. If they say to us, wait there until we come to you, we'll stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, come up to us, we'll climb up, because that'll be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands. You get what's going on here, right? It's basically a test. Like, we're here, we've come, we've moved out. Now let's find out. Perhaps God's going to act. Let's see if he does. We're going to call up to them. We'll say some taunting things. Your mama's funny, whatever, right? And they're going to see us, and they're going to say, come on up here. If they say, come on up there, we're going to come up there. We're going to come and we're going to teach them a lesson. They think they're going to teach us something. We're going to teach them a lesson. But if they stay down there, yeah, look, let's not do this. let's not. So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outpost, right? I don't know how they showed themselves. Hey, guys, or they're yelling, insults to them. Look, said the Philistines, the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. So the taunts are going both ways, right? Look, the cowards, there they are. Another reason why Saul sitting under the pomegranate tree in Migron is a negative thing, right? Look, they're cowards. They've been hiding from us. They're not on warpath. But here they are. The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan, his armor bearer, come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hands of Israel. And Jonathan climbed up using his hands and his feet with his armor bearer right behind him. Can you picture this? This is a mount. So mountains are these things like they go way up. You guys know it? Nobody? Yeah. It's just call back. That's a good sermon teller if you call back, but I got no laughs, so it didn't really work. All right. So anyway, the mountain there, they're climbing up hands and feet over there. So Jonathan said to his armor, climb up after me. And they climbed up, and the Philistines fell before Jonathan, verse 13, halfway through it. And his armor bearer followed him and killed behind him. Now, that's it. We've got like half a verse that tells you this fight scene. But if you're just seeing this like I'm seeing this, there's a movie scene in your head right now, right? They've climbed up. We need like epic fight music scene. If only we had something like that. You can see them, they get to the top and they're sweating and already their fingers are bloody from the climb, and they look and the armor bearer's right behind them and they pull their swords, and they're probably like Marion Andrews, those huge swords that they've got, and they're like, and everything goes in slow motion, you know what I'm talking about? And the hair, and he's coming behind him, and maybe they flip around and he comes around and they're stabbing, and someone does a flip, and I don't know, it's like ninja spirit, right? And they're stab. Okay, we got the picture. This is what's happening in the slow motion picture of the scene. And his armor bearer fought, and they killed behind him. In the first attack, Jonathan, his armor bearer, killed some 20 men in an area of about half an acre. This huge piece of land, half an acre is not huge, but 20 people versus 2. And they win. Because they said, perhaps the Lord will act. Perhaps he'll act on our behalf. Verse 15, then panic struck the whole army, those in the camp and the field, and those in the outposts and the raiding parties. And the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. God's with them. They just went out. They just did something. They came and they did something. And God said, all right, I'm going to use that. And he came alongside them and he powerfully moved. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. But today's Christians, we're exactly the opposite, aren't we? There seem to be no foes for us to face. No action to take, no adrenaline. If the Lord wants to act, let him act. He can do what he wants. But if he's going to use me, he's going to have to make the path really clear. Like we say, Lord, please make an opportunity for me today. Like he's giving you 1,000 stinking opportunities. Take them. Right? But we're like, oh, we're going to wait. We got to make sure it's very clear. Because let's be honest, we don't ever stop and listen to God. We have our devotions in the morning, but is it really listening, or is it studying? Is it learning? Are we listening? How many of you just spend some time outside looking at the stars and saying, God, how are you planning on acting? What is it that you want me to do? And when's the last time you went on Friday night to the cool place? I don't know what the cool place is in Warsaw. I still haven't found it, but I'm sure there's one, right? Where the kids are all hanging out and you watch the people and you said, how are you going to act? Are you going to act on our behalf, on the kingdom's behalf? Is the kingdom going to come through works from my works in this world? I'm going to do something? What risks can I take, Lord? Can I go out of my comfort zone? When have I picked up the Bible and actually said, teach me something, not about this, but how it moves me in the world? How many Jonathans are there here who said, let's go? Says perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. And I don't know, maybe he won't. Maybe he's not going to do what we think he's going to do. But maybe we should just do something and let him come alongside. I've spent a year here, and I hope for half of that year I've been trying, even in Sunday school, to try to help us to be curious and to think outside the box. And I hope this church continues to be a thinking church, engrossed in Scripture. But I also hope we are a moving church. A church that doesn't have to have all the right answers to everything, who just goes out with a heart for God and a heart for people, and we try as hard as we can, and we don't care if we get it right. We fail a lot. And we try to get it right, but we just want to move. I used to coach a soccer team for 6th and 7th graders when Caden was out there, and my one plea to them from the sideline, like on my knees, just shoot the soccer ball. Just shoot, please, because there's just a whole lot of running around and no, it's like right there. We're all waiting for the perfect shot. And oh my goodness, I played soccer all my life. I love it. It's just sitting there and there's a goal and the goalie's over there and you see him running in slow motion. You're just like, oh my gosh, like that doesn't happen. You just got to shoot, right? Shoot 9 or 10 times. You're only going to make it once, but if you don't shoot, you're never going to make it. Just shoot it and it'll look sloppy. You'll be like, oh, it doesn't line up just right. And so you kick it and it just kind of rolls. And the goalie kind of picks it up and looks at you like, that was pitiful. Yeah, that's okay. I tried. Next time it might go in. We're failing, but we're doing things. We got a game plan, experiment more, fail more, invest in things that seem crazy, not just oil or single stock futures, but invest in loving people more and spend time over at the nursing home or the full care facility. Go see John Eaton and pray with him and love with him and invest in him. And in the jail with Kairos Ministries, invest in the ministries that WEPC supports. But you might have something on your heart. God's put something there. Grab a hold of that. Do something with it. Grab an armor bearer and go for it. A backyard Bible club. How easy is that? Bake some brownies, put a blanket out on your block, tack up a thing on a telephone pole or somewhere around, a mailbox, let people know that you're doing this, and then break out the Bible, read a little story, and play kickball with the kids. Invest in them. Maybe they'll see Jesus in you. I know Andrew and I, we've been talking a lot about joy to the city. What are we going to do to bring joy to the city? That's going to be this 2020, 2021, I hope. Like we're investing and changing and doing things. Maybe the poor will be raised up because of the generosity of the wealthy. I don't know what that looks like, but maybe it's time to make a plan for what that can look like. I know Stacy Miller has this plan to bring the churches together and to unify us in some way so we're all inspired together and moving towards the same goal. Perhaps the Lord will act on her behalf, on our behalf, on this church's behalf. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right as they're going into the fire, they say to the king, God has the power to save us, but we don't know if he will. But even if he doesn't, right? We're in. We're going for it. We're not going to sit silently. We don't know whether God is going to save us or not. My son, Caden, when he turned 18, finally, you have to be 18 to do this. And those of you who are super, super, super conservative right now, just do la, 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 la for a moment. He got a tattoo. And my whole family is planning on doing that, by the way, because I have nothing to lose, I'll just tell you. And so we're doing it, and he got it right here, and it says, even if, ... even if, right? Even if God doesn't come through, he doesn't do what I'm thinking he's gonna do, I'm in. I'm going for it. He got it in my wife's handwriting, so it makes me cry even still. Riston just turned 18, he's planning on doing the same thing. Even if. If God, we want God to do, and that's what they're saying. That's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say. That's what Esther says as she approaches the king, basically. I don't know. He may lower the scepter. I might be destroyed. Even if he does that, I'm in. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Joab and Abishai, same thing in 2 Samuel 10. He says, be of good courage and let us be courageous for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what seems good to him. We're going to be courageous. We're going to do it. Let God do what he's going to do. That's basically saying perhaps the Lord will act. Maybe he'll do something. I don't know what actions God blesses. I don't know. I mean, I know some of them. He makes them very clear, but I don't know what's next for me or next for you. I don't know what he's going to run away with and take hold. I don't know what the will of God is. Isn't that part of our problem? We're waiting to know what the will of God is. And we're just struggling. And I get this. I'm struggling with this all the time. I ask this question, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do now? What are we supposed to do? And here's Luther's answer. I love this. I can't find it, but maybe it's legend. I don't know. He says this, if you want to know the will of God, love God and do whatever the blank you want. So I'm a good Baptist boy. I can't fill in the blank, but you Presbyterians might be able to. Okay? Love God and do whatever you want. If you're loving God with all your heart, your soul, your strength, and your mind, you're totally focused on him and his kingdom, you can't go wrong. It might fall flat. He might not boost you up and give you everything that you're hoping for, but maybe he will. But either way, moving does something. Take a chance. Yes, get advice from elders and friends and maybe from children and parents and spouses and everyone, but don't just stand there. Do something. And I get it that it's scary. I took a chance. I walked out in faith. I was comfortable where I was. I had a career job. It paid me plenty of money. My kids could go to college. I was taken care of. And I thought, I got to take a chance. I got to risk. And you know what? It bombed. I took a chance. This was going to be my end place. And it bombed. God said, nope, that's not what I got for you. I got you there for a year, but I got something else for you. I assume now I'm taking another chance. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a risk. I don't know what to go next. I'm going to go to Dallas. I'm going to go there. I don't have a job. I don't have a plan. I don't have an apartment. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks. I'm Indiana Jones, right? I'm just walking. You guys know the third movie where he does that? Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm just going to try this. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Perhaps he's going to do something amazing if I just jump into the game and don't sit on the sideline and spectate. That family who desperately needs a place to live, you have a room. What are you afraid of? Take them in. That prisoner who just needs a consistent friend to visit, you think, oh, well, I visited, I've done my job. Go care for them weekly. What are we risking? Instead of taking my kids on vacations, we took them to Kenya and to China and to Trinidad. Like in China, we were watched everywhere we went. I was teaching at Beida at the Peking University. It's the big university there. They had people on me in the classes watching, making sure that I didn't say the wrong thing. There's a chance you never make it back from that kinds of stuff. I was like, let's do this. Let's risk everything. It's a month out of our life. Let's go for it. We took in a Kenyan family for several months. My wife almost died during that time. Like, oh my goodness, there's so many people in this house and they're so different than us. And we took in foster kids. Instead of buying a new TV, we thought, let's give our money that way. We took a homeless man into our house who'd just come out of prison because why not? God gave us something. My family, we barely take any risks. Some of those might sound like big risks. They're not. They weren't huge risks for us. We'd be fine. What's next? What's going to cause me and my family to sacrifice, to risk everything for the kingdom? What's happened to me now, maybe this is what's next. Maybe you're going to get involved in the Ecuadorial jungles like Nate Saint and Jim Elliott, and maybe you'll be martyred for your faith. Maybe it's that extreme. Maybe you're just going to speak the truth here in Warsaw to power, which might make your job suffer a little bit more. Maybe you're gonna risk it and do foster care. These orphans that need help, orphans and widows, James says, is what true religion is. Maybe you're gonna do that. Maybe you're gonna adopt. Maybe you're gonna sit at that lunch table with that person who doesn't fit in. That was a New Year's resolution for me and all of my children. We said, this year we're gonna make sure that we go out of our way to befriend people who are not normal friends of us, that don't fit into our little normal. Something that's different. Right? And that doesn't mean they're losers or awkward or anything. They're just not kind of people that we'd normally hang out with. We're going to be those kinds of friends. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Perhaps he's going to add to your blessing. I can guarantee he's going to add to your blessing. That's not even a perhaps. I know he will, but perhaps he's going to do something even bigger than you can imagine. He'll change someone's life. He'll plant a seed of life in someone, and someone else will come along and water it, and someone else will see the increase of all that, and they'll become big in their community or in their church, and they're going to make a huge difference. I can't go into more examples. I got to stay on script. This is already going to be way too long. I'm like almost halfway done, so don't worry. Right? And I don't mean you're just saving someone, right? Because you don't get to choose who's saved. The Holy Spirit does that. But we can show them a beautiful Jesus in everything we're doing. We can risk everything. We got 500 people here. You might not recognize that because you only see 150 or so, but there's 500 people in this church. But there's 15,000 in the city? And on the outskirts, even thousands more right outside of the city? There's a huge amount of people. How are we going to do anything? That's why I love that other verse, that ending of that verse. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. And then the second part, nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. I want us to jump together and to lock arms together as a church because I think we're going to have a whole lot more fun teaming up and doing this. But feel free to go out with just an armor bearer, somebody else who's excited along with you, and who will do the work, who's involved. In fact, let me add this. Feel free to just go out with a Jonathan. That is, some of you aren't Jonathans. Some of you aren't those kingly figures. Some of you are just the people who support them. That's awesome. Some of us who want to be Jonathans, we absolutely have to have somebody alongside us. We got to have somebody behind us, back, who knows the moves, that when I flip around this way, they're going to go the other way. That they're fighting right beside us, that they're praying for us. Maybe I'm not super extrovert. I'm not going to knock on anybody's door. Maybe I'm going to be the armor bearer. Someone else is going to knock on the door. I'm going to stand right beside them, a little bit behind them. I'm going to be just tugging on their shirt and reminding them that I'm praying for them right now, because I don't have a whole lot more power. I'm not a good communicator. I don't know what else, right? But I'm going to do something. Getting out of our comfort zone. John Muir. You guys know John Muir? I love this guy. I want to be him. I want to be the guy who tags along with him, the guy who kayaks through glaciers and rides avalanches and chases bears and climbs mountains. You know the type of person, even if you don't know who he is. One day he says in his book that he was staying at a friend's house in the Yosemite Valley. And this storm came along, sheets of rain, huge winds, like knock your house down kinds of wind. And most people would just like huddle up in their house, get that fire going, right? And you just hunker down in there. He says, not him at all. He looks at it, he says, yeah, some of the younger trees are bowing down. He said, as if in worship, they're almost touching the ground, some of these. And he says, he rushed out. I lost no time in pushing out into the woods to enjoy it, for on such occasions, nature has something rare to show us, and the danger to life and limb is hardly greater than one would experience crouching beneath a roof. He climbed up on this mountain ridge. He found the biggest Douglas fir he could find, because he figured that's weathered the most amount of storms. And he climbs it to the top, and he's holding on to the top of this thing, and it's just swaying in the winds. He said it's a 20 to 30 degree arc, and the rain is beating down in the wind, and he's just soaking it in. Just enjoying the presence, this power, the sight and the sound. Never, he says, did these noble woods appear so fresh, so joyous, so immortal. Eugene Peterson says of John Muir, he says he stands as an icon of spiritual reality, a standing rebuke on being a mere spectator on life. I feel sometimes like I'm just a spectator. I'm just watching God do stuff, and I'm not in the game. And for a lot of us, life is like that. We have a pretty routine life. We pretty much stick to that routine. We don't invest in oil. Risk is too high. We don't have more than 2 children because, well, it's already hard enough. And we don't use our Fridays for ministry and in the harder parts of town because we're just busy and it's dirty there. And there's, I don't know, AIDS-infected needles or whatever things we put into our heads to keep us from doing this. We don't take vacations to Somalia or Pakistan, do we? Because they're dangerous. We don't want to do those kinds of things. And we deserve our vacations, and we don't tithe because we barely make enough money now. If God wants to give us extra money, then that's great. We'll give that. But no, we never give it. We don't risk. We don't call people to account because they might not like us. All these things, we need to take risks to do what God says. We just watch. John Muir says, wild is superior. I don't know if he's right, but some of you, maybe some of us, we need to find our wild side. We need to take more risks. We need to jump from the top. We need to close our eyes and fall backwards and trust that God has got us. I would hate for you to be 80 years old and sitting up on this pew with your hands in your face, just buried into your hands, crying out that you've wasted your life. It's John Piper's book, Don't Waste Your Life. He has that picture, and it just grabbed hold of me all my life, that we've wasted it. I want a church full of people spent for a glorious cause, loving God with all our heart, soul, strength, and mind, loving our neighbor as ourselves. To do that right requires risk. It requires it. I don't want to go out with a heart attack at age 85, picking up shells on a beach, sailing on the bay, watching The Price is Right. Especially not The Price is Right. I want to go out like Nancy Davis, who spent 40 years in Mexico ministering the gospel as a church leader and a nurse. And in 2011, she and her husband, a group full of people, a truck pulled up next to them as they were driving and shot her in the head. She was done. You say, that's horrifying and beautiful. Spent for a glorious cause. She was ministering the gospel for 40 years there. See, risk for the right cause is safety. It is safety. anything less than risk for the white-hot glory of God. You can hear Piper in that if some of you have read him. The white-hot glory of God is the exact opposite of safety. We are the safest when we're within God's will, doing what he's called us to do. Go out, take the battle to the enemy. Be the arrow that is being sent towards the enemy, like we've been talking about under parenting. I don't think God works with people watching The Price is Right, picking up shells. That's not, maybe he does. Maybe there's something for that, but right now I want to call you to something so much bigger, to people like Jonathan Edward who have resolved. Have you read his resolutions? Here's just a few of them. Resolved, never to lose one moment of time, but improve it the most profitable way I possibly can. Resolved to live with all my might while I do live. Resolved that I will live so as I shall wish I had done when I come to die. Resolved to endeavor to obtain for myself as much happiness in the other world as I possibly can, with all the power, might, vigor, and vehemence, yea, violence I am capable of or can bring myself to exert in any way that can be thought of. I want these resolutions to be mine. I'm in God. We got something going on. You're older people here. You think, I've done my ministry. I'm tired. How great a chance for you to spend your life, to exhaust it completely in the service of God. What's next for you? Some of you parents, well, I've got little kids right now. I can't take risks and danger. Why? Let them see you risking it all. Take them. Take them and teach them what risk is, what proper risk is. Not jumping off ladders, although that's cool too. But real risk. We can make a difference in Warsaw. There's more to this story, though. This is the beautiful part of this. Like, all of this is a good, come on, grab hold of the horns. But there's something more here, because Jonathan is the son of Saul, the king. And Jonathan and Saul are going to be moved aside for a new king to come in. And the question is, who will mediate God's love to these people correctly? Who will be the man who stands in between God and man? Who, when people look at them, they will see God in them? You understand? That's our position, our job. You are kings and priests, a kingdom of priests. We even sang it in the song. We talked about it in Sunday school. You are a kingdom of priests, kings and priests to God. You are supposed to be, when people see you, they see the image of God in the world, his icon, his representative in the world. So who's going to be? Is it going to be Jonathan, or is it going to be is it Jonathan Saul, or is it going to be David? And Jonathan switches sides. It's Jonathan David versus Saul. But we're not supposed to see be like Saul, and we're certainly not supposed to see that. We're not supposed to see David, Jonathan, be like David and Jonathan. That's not what this sermon is either. Be more like Jonathan. That's not it. You're supposed to be what Jonathan is symbolizing, what he's typifying. He's looking to a better king, a better representative, because Jonathan's a huge mess too. David, oh my goodness, you're going to read about David's disastrous mess, right? Great king, who's doing the good things and still a disaster. He's not mediating God the way he's supposed to mediate God either. So we need someone better to come, to mediate, to take this kind of action in the world, to jump all in and to make a difference to the world. And that carpenter walking over the hill and the sun rising in the background and the wind flowing through his hair, you're supposed to see this Jesus as the one who mediates God properly. And he, oh my goodness, talk about a guy who takes action, who jumps in, who's ready. This is the guy who silences waves and heals people and says, you dead people, stand up, and casts out demons. He's taking action everywhere he goes. He's doing something. He's jumping in. He is the mission of God in the world. And then that's his active obedience. And then his passive obedience on the cross, which is an action as well, as he lets himself be killed on a cross for us. So this is not about dare to be a Daniel or a David or any other things that rhyme or alliterate. It's about Jesus. This story is also about Jesus, the king who comes between God and man and redeems the world, who makes a difference for us. And if we grab hold of his hand, and he says, come on, I've got you. Let's go up and defeat these people. And we say, I'm with you, heart and soul, I'm ready. I'm ready. Where are you going to take me? Some of you don't know this Jesus. You've heard a good, hopefully, story that's encouraging and stuff like that, but you don't know this Jesus. And more than anything else, I want you to. I want you to grab a hold of that hand that he holds out for you. I want you to confess your sin. You're following your own path, your spectator path. You're just watching the world go by, and I want you to jump in with him as he removes all of your sins, as we sang about today. As he removes them and pushes them as far as they can possibly be from us and loves us. This is this Jesus. We don't do all this because love conquers all, because action and wild is superior. We do this because we follow in Jesus' footsteps. We do this because Jesus conquers all. We get peace not because we've been active, but because Jesus brings us peace in his work on the cross, and now we follow suit. It's not just wanting some kind of hope for the future. It's because Christ is our future, and I hope that you can see this. All these risks, the things that we do, we're called to love justly and to walk justly and love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. And it's only through his power of his resurrection that we can do any of these things. God's kingdom is built by his people doing. You're called to do. It's why it's why this rapture theology that we just sit and wait for God to do something is missing the point. It's so dangerous. By the power of Christ, we risk things. We risk tithing, and we risk adoption, and we risk using our precious time to cut our neighbor's grass, and we risk supporting a child via Compassion International, and we risk our reputation by attending worship instead of a ballet recital, and we risk our 401k to buy property for people in desperate need, and we risk our dignity by bringing Gatorade to the park for whoever's playing pickup games, and we risk, by the power of Christ, we risk putting away the video game and the TV and the computer and whatever it is that we're doing, and reach out and love people. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. What's next, Presby? What's next? What's he going to do next? Perhaps you're thinking this wasn't everything you'd hoped for. You were hoping for more. You were hoping to go out there. Perhaps the Lord's got something in 2020. Perhaps he's going to do something amazing for you. I don't know what it is, but I know your new head of staff is really excited about what God's going to do. When I got here, I preached a sermon about Braveheart, and I said, you bled with Eric, now bleed with me. You remember that? I would say, now you bled with me. We've done some things. We've been on a journey. Now bleed with Andrew for a while. Grab hold of him and support him. And let's see what God does in this new world that we're entering into, that Jesus has got his mission prepared. He's got something for you. I can't wait to see what it is. Let me pray for us. Father, will you act on our behalf this year and next year and every year as we risk, as we take chances? And I've preached so long, and I need to close this. But please, Lord, if there's someone here who does not know you, would you grab hold of them today, that they would grab hold of your hand, they would give up their own path and follow after you. Lord, for this congregation, I pray a special blessing that you would use them mightily in Warsaw and beyond, that they would be planting churches, planting little kingdoms. They would grab hold of heaven and bring it to earth so that the world might see the beauty of Christ. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.